Hi-O, and thank you for coming, and huge thanks. I just can't explain how thankful we are for having such conferences around. And just a small clarification, we're not the first animal rights organization in Bulgaria, KG, but rather the first one that deals exclusively with animals in the industry. And this has been a process through a long time through animal rights activism in Bulgaria, and hopefully today you'll kind of see why we emerged. Um, and the topic is the European Union's most corrupt country. And yesterday we had a kind of debate on which is the most corrupt country with quite a few people. Um, and I think this is indeed an obstacle, but it really opens up a lot of opportunities for the organizations to work with the society and build good relations with the society and then move uh, engage this power of the society to the institutions. Um, and I'm going to talk about the last 10 years, but first I really want to talk about the early days of animal rights movement in Bulgaria, which was in the early 1900s. Um, there were really turbulent times all over the place. But there was something really cool. On a couple of occasions, there were two movements that were kind of intersecting, and one of them was the sobriety clubs we had in Bulgaria, which is basically abstinence from drinking and stuff like that. And they were predominantly anarchist members. But there was another more broad group that had a different focus, and this was the vegetarian meetings that they were having. Um, so this photo is taken in the 1930s, and there's one girl that I really want to draw your attention to. It's super weird to do that, so I'm just going to point. It's this girl here, and she's been vegetarian, I think, her whole life, or for quite a long time. So here you can see the same girl at her 93rd birthday. Um, and this photo has really moved a lot of the activists in Bulgaria because we thought, this has never been done before in such a place, and we just do stuff that we don't know of that have been done before, maybe. So if if you are struggling with doing something that you thought has never been done before, just do your research. Anyway, so back to kind of present times. And now starts the really bad news, actually. Because 2007 was a really important time in animal rights movement in Bulgaria. There was four paws, the multinational organization. They have a branch in Bulgaria, and they actually did something great. And this was to stop the use of bears as street entertainers. So we have a lot of Czech trams in Bulgaria, and it was not uncommon to see bears dancing in the trams and around the streets. So Four Paws ended that, and that was super cool. They also built a conservation shelter for all the bears they managed to rescue. But also there was something else also very important, and that was a beginning of a campaign led by a few veterinarians and other organizations that kind of dealt with animal welfare to some extent. And this was to incriminate the violence against animals. This is super important because, cool, I have it there, because Bulgarian law in some aspects is really dumb. So you will get treated the same whether you're putting fireworks into animals as well as polluting the ground and like throwing your cigarettes on the floor. So this was really bad, and these people that started the campaign really did their work. And here comes a pretty interesting, for me at least, divide in the animal rights movement. I didn't know about this campaign until it already finished. And I've been involved in animal rights stuff for quite a long time now. So it took them 4 years, by the way. We'll get to the, in 2011, they finished successfully. They have a pretty good law that's been implemented. And now our first kind of popular animal rights focused organization that takes more like the the vegetarian lifestyle way. It's not focused so much on the animals. So to give you an example, they have 3 pages of recipes with rice on their blog, and no animal rights issues in between. But it's super cool to have them actually, and to pave the way for further activism. And there was not much going on at that time. You see how things quickly escalate back home. 2011, the incrimination of violence towards animals was already implemented. It was super cool. Actually, the society took this with like people were really happy about it, and it's not just people; it's the organizations around that don't do anything with animal rights. So I think minority groups and stuff like that. But the person who was most responsible for this, she received multiple awards for pushing through these changes. So you know that there's like an interest in improving animals' lives when you see that it's not just animal rights activists doing it. All right, and now comes on the next slide. There's a really embarrassing photo of me, and this is the first vegan collective that I've been a part of. When I came back home from England, I came from a very vivid and very active animal rights movement. And going back home, it was very weird for me not to find not just vegan options, but people with whom to do stuff for animals. So I started where every other punk kid starts, and it was at the punk shows and hardcore shows. We started giving away food and leaflets to promote animal rights and veganism and stuff. And it was pretty cool for us and for a very small handful of people. Like literally maybe 10 people enjoyed that. The rest found it annoying. But yeah, we were having lots of fun. We were we were making pancakes at punk shows and like stage diving with pizzas, and that's a super cool memory that like really resonates with a lot of people. So I hope your history of animal rights activism starts kind of like this. All right. So as I said, we didn't really resonate with the punk and hardcore scene back home for one reason or another. So we started looking for other opportunities. So we started organizing our own events. And one such event was in a social center in the center of Sofia, and that's a pretty key place. It was home for a lot of activist circles, ecological, political, and literally it was the activist hotspot for in Sofia and in Bulgaria in total. So we decided to do a screening there, our first screening, and it was of a movie called Bold Native. I think many of you recognize it. And this is a photo that is not really a clear representation of what the screening was. So you can see people moving and stuff, and it was just 2 of us organizing it, cooking, and trying to take photos. So we were taking photos in the really quiet times. Actually, the screening was so successful that people were watching. Thankfully, the social center is on the first floor, so people were watching from outside the social center. There was huge interest in this, and we were really, we felt really good to be accepted from outside of the places where we used to. So we continued doing screenings in various and very different from one another venues. So we went from popular bars to participating in some film festivals and stuff like that. And we were not just focused on animal rights issues, actually. There was a lot of ecological, I don't know, like ecological stuff about the screenings we did, but we also did not only focus on movies. We translated a ton of lectures and created very productive conversations after the lectures. So we saw a huge following of this. Moving on, so the Vegetarian Society, Bulgarian Vegetarian Society, they started releasing their first magazine, and it's the first magazine in Bulgaria that was ever focused on vegetarian stuff. And this is a very key player in the animal rights circles in Bulgaria. Wild Animals Foundation was founded, and it's actually predominantly one person who does most of the work, and they employ a ton of volunteers, which is crucial not just to get work done, but to involve other people into the issues. So just to bring your attention, for one person predominantly doing the work, they helped more than 3,000 animals in 2017 alone, and then they're definitely going to overachieve this year too with more than 3,100. Sorry. All right, there we go. More than 3,100 animals till August this year. And they started helping animals, but actually you see they played another very important role in the animal rights movement afterwards. And from this vegan collective, which was a very informal group, came a series of protests. So we were protesting in front of the Varna Zoo because the conditions there were awful, and actually the people that joined the protest after it started, that didn't know about the protest, were maybe tenfold more than the activists. So we know that there's like a huge group of people just waiting for activists to turn up and start doing stuff to be able to join them. Then again, quiet times are present. So 2014, there was the first one of the first vegetarian festivals in Sofia. Not very eventful, but definitely set the tone for the next year, which was pretty crucial. 2015. This is again when the vegan collective Act on Food, we started breaking up, and multiple things emerged from it. We were doing some food not bombs activism here and there. One of our activists got arrested. They confiscated our cooker and our pan, and they fined us for cooking vegetables, which was really dumb. And then this happened, which nobody kind of saw it coming, and we had like a huge protest, which I wasn't actually on it, which makes me sound bad, but anyway. So there was a huge protest that nobody saw coming, and Petya here was part of it. This protest was started from the festival that you saw last year. So the festival from 2014 started happening every year, and on 2015 we saw this protest, but it also brought to attention the fur farming problem in Bulgaria, because we did, for the most part, we didn't know that there were any fur farms in Bulgaria. And the first protest that happened was for the big farm that we have, and we found the business proposition that they submitted to the state, which was for 400,000 animals. So we had two pretty successful protests, and then nothing for the next year. Meat is Murder protest in Sofia. I think this is a pretty it's a turning point, definitely, for Bulgarian activists, and not just that, because it managed to invite a lot of activists from Romania, I think Serbia as well, and from other places. and it set the tone, and it was really popular. This was the second protest that was all over the media. And you can see why. Like there were people in pants and stuff like that. But people really paid attention to it, and it was a huge media boom. And then there was a festival again by Bulgarian Vegetarian Society that happened in Varna, and it built on the previous festival and the protests, the attention to mink farms in Bulgaria, and protested in the smaller one, which happened to be in the same city as the festival. And coming from these Meat is Not Murder protests, some of the key figures in it, these people started the Bulgarian Vegan Union, which is active ever since. And they're a very polarizing figure in in vegan society in Bulgaria, and they're not polarizing figure at all in Bulgarian society as general, because people generally dislike them because what they do is not wrong, but how they execute it and how they communicate about it is pretty troublesome. But it was founded in, again, it kept on the animal rights talk in media on for a few times. But actually, it wasn't the animal rights. The focus of media wasn't the animal rights, but rather the scandals that these protests were causing. So there was a huge shift in the media attention, and we consistently saw that with Bulgarian media and how they pick their what to talk about, especially with animal rights. 2017. So this was last year, and for the past 2 years, there's been so much stuff happening in Bulgaria in terms of animal rights that, like, I don't think even if I spent just the whole presentation, just 2 years, is going to be enough. So there was again a vegan festival in Bulgaria. We were close to getting our first V label, which will hope every vegan that hates reading labels and ingredients list. Campaign for vegetarian meals in kindergartens. And all these three initiatives were started by the Bulgarian Vegan Vegetarian Society, which that's what they do, and that's really helpful because we want these institutions, not just kindergartens. I'm sure they'll move on when they to other institutions after the kindergarten success. And then our organization was founded. So yeah, it was founded, and then it was founded after a need that we saw that there wasn't really an animal rights group that dealt not just with the lifestyle choices, but the institutional problems that that the country has with animals and treating animals. So one, there was a legislative proposal for a very key law, I guess, that dealt with fur farms. And as a group of people, we've been sending letters with arguments to the state about what this farm is not doing right. And we saw huge corruption. For example, there was no assessment of the risk. And I'm sure most of you know, but American mink is a pretty invasive species. It's very problematic if seen in the wild. And there was the compulsory risk assessment was completely missed from the business proposal, and the state did not require it. And that was a business proposal for 400,000 animals. Such risk assessment is required for farms for pigs that are more than 200 pigs, I think. So we saw that just writing letters does not help, and we have to organize better. We started gathering people, and we were a very active group of, we are a very active group of like veterinarians and lawyers and pretty knowledgeable and experienced people in animal rights movement. So we've been quite successful. We not just organizing people, but talking to the institutions too. So with the protests and with the protests in front of the ministry that proposed this law change, we were quite successful. In fact, we were invited in the ministry on the very same day. But we also managed to get involved other organizations that were close to animal rights. For example, there's a big problem with stray dogs back home. So we managed to involve this. And the problem with stray dogs is another very obvious example of the corruption going on in Bulgaria, because the population reduction programs that are run in Bulgaria, actually the funds are increasing, but paradoxically, the population of dogs is increasing too. So there's a lot of shelters that are not doing work well and are just in it for the money. But to be clear, they're pretty awesome shelters there. Like, if you ever go to Bulgaria and Sofia, there's a shelter literally 30 minutes away from the city, and it's awesome. So if you go there, just take a look and walk some dogs around. All right, so this is the protest, and again, we were pretty focused on grabbing the attention of the ministry. Media was pretty silent about it. And then in September, we published the first fur farm investigation. Actually, it was the first animal farm investigation in the history of Bulgaria, which was pretty awesome. And we didn't know what to expect from the society, and because this has never been done before, and people are typically pretty skeptical about animal rights in places where human rights are huge issues. And such was the case in Bulgaria, but there were a lot of empathetic people, and people really really cared about it. I think everyone from our organization was pleasantly surprised that we saw such support. And we got some media attention there, but not what you would imagine with such a important event. We spoke twice on national TV, and a lot of the newspapers and stuff, they completely omitted this. Although we've been quite consistent with sending press releases and stuff, and we do have people that we know in the media, but yeah, it's the media tries to shut us down big time. So this is a photo of the big farm in Bulgaria, the one for 400,000 animals. Currently, it's raising 130,000 animals, I think. All right, and now to present times. There was another vegan festival in Bulgaria, which we're really happy about, actually, because at that point, Bulgarian vegetarian society have shifted their interest, and it was not only focused on lifestyle choices of people and like vegetarianism as a diet and stuff, but they started taking part in and helping us with stuff that we do. A protest by 4 paws and wild animals was the most radical protest that I've ever been to, especially like animal rights protests. And it's one of the most radical protests in Bulgaria. And it started with 2 lion cubs. And again, this is where the corruption topic comes in again. So they were requested by a mayor, a mayor in a city where they don't have any conditions for the lion cubs. In fact, these lion cubs were born with severe genetic complications. So they required the immediate and very serious, like veterinarian attention. And on 2 occasions, from the state and the state institutions, they changed their minds, and they decided to move away the the lion, the cubs from the zoo that's not suitable, um, to to a place where the where faux and wild animals proposed these animals would get proper treatment. And then one day, uh, like it was I think it was the day that the lion cubs were supposed to go. The state changed his mind again, and they said that they were staying in Bulgaria and they're staying in the zoo, where they will surely die. And that's where it kicked off. Uh, there was this protest happened over a lunch break, literally, and there were like 400 people maybe going to it. Um, it got a lot of media attention, even in the morning. Um, and it started with as a peaceful protest, protesting and requiring the minister's attention for this issue. And as we didn't get the response we really wanted, we took to the streets. And we actually pushed the police in one of the ministries and went in the foyer, or whatever the word is. And you can see, I don't know, you can't see it here, but I could see, this is photo I've taken. It was literally like a police line behind me. And you could see the organizers of the protest and the people caring about the animals, about the two cubs, feeling pretty shocked that they were responsible for such a thing and that they have the power to provoke such strong reaction in the public. Needless to say, 2 hours after this happened, the state changed its mind for a final time, and now I think where are the cubs now? Yeah, so they're now in the Netherlands, getting ready and getting treated for going back to Africa, where they would stay in their optimal conditions. All right. So this was for poles and wild animals. Now, we started our citizen initiative to ban fur farms in Bulgaria quite early. It was actually less than a year after the existence of CAAI. And this was, there were several reasons for it. One of them is because fur bans are so common nowadays, and every year there's a new country banning this practice. And with the law in Bulgaria and such lucrative like corruption schemes, it's pretty easy to move such businesses back home. So we really think it's crucial to get this ban as fast as possible before big farms start invading the country. So this national citizen initiative was a huge challenge for us. But as one of my favorite, now I forgot his name. Anyway, but, one of my favorite activists that we even with like Act on Food, we translated his lectures. You have to put yourself in a position where you provoke things to happen and not wait for them to happen. So although we weren't fully prepared for having this national citizen initiative, we went for it, and it was a huge success. People on the streets, I know I didn't spend as much time as other volunteers, but people on the streets were so helpful and so thankful and also so grateful that they can be part of something something positive in a country where corruption is a really big pain in the ass. So we collected twice as many signatures on paper as we did with the online petition. Apart from that, we gathered volunteers for the sections where we collect the signatures. I think easier than what we expected because people were so sympathetic. And now some of these people are here today with us. So from volunteers, they quickly turned into members of the group. All right, and actually the submission of signatures in the parliament was actually a big success for us. We thought that the parliament being not caring about public opinion as they are, they're going to neglect this. But actually, we've been going to several commissions, and everybody's surprised by how close we are to getting the fur ban. But taking into consideration the hard work that some people have done on the campaign, namely Petya and a few other key figures, has been pretty cool. And this campaign has also influenced Bulgarian vegetarian society in a very positive way. They moved away from the lifestyle group that they were, and they actually took huge part in the signature collecting. Wild Animals was also part of the committee that started the citizen initiative. Cool. And yeah, that's well it. Now, there's like a lot that we can do in Bulgaria. Fur farm ban vote in the parliament is pretty close, but we still have to find a group of MPs to sign it, because we don't want this to be associated with any one parliamentary group. And also, there's a huge focus on foie gras back home, especially with us, because I don't know how many people know, but Bulgaria is the second biggest exporter of foie gras. Is it in the world or in Europe? In Europe, yeah. So this is a huge focus for us. For now, it's we've been having this campaign mainly as a political lobby, but I think we will escalate this at some point if we don't see results. And I'll be really thankful to have questions from you, because this is what I find interesting. But if there's something else that you want to know of, that would be pretty awesome.
Hi, I have a fact and a question. There's an organisation called Transparency International, and they release opinion surveys of how the public sector is perceived as corrupt, and Bulgaria ranks as 71 out of the 180, and in Europe, Ukraine is the lowest at 107 of the 180 countries surveyed. So you're not the most perceived corrupt country.
Actually, I was pretty specific with the title, because it's the most corrupt country in the European Union.
Oh, okay. Well, you're right. Yeah, fair enough. Okay. But the question I have is, okay, this is going to continue. The politicians in Bulgaria, how they're perceived to be supporting like movements such as what you are talking about. Do you think that if they do support an organisation like yourself and your movements, will they be met with scrutiny within their standpoint as a politician, and will them supporting groups that essentially in such a big like meat-eating country discredit them?
It's pretty difficult to say, but I think what we saw with the citizen initiative, and actually I think you should give some background. We had our first sociological research on fur farms done in Bulgaria just this year, and 75% of people don't agree with fur farming practices at all, and 65 won't see the fur farming ban as the only way to solve this. And I think politicians, from the conversations we've had with them, they don't have any arguments against the fur farm. Actually, some of them went to great extents as to find that financially they're not beneficial to the country nor to the society. And I hope they do communicate this well, and they don't play their political games, because the current parliament is pretty divided between the majority and the minority groups. And but people are really wanting to be part of something very productive, because for the past 30 years we've had very little small successes in society that actually make big difference. And I think this fur ban is going to be something that everybody feels great about.
Thank you for the really interesting presentation, and I have just one small question. How many fur farms do you have in your country?
Yeah, we currently have just officially just 2 farms. One of them is raising 130,000 animals, and then the other one is 1,500.
So foie gras is a bigger industry.
Foie gras is much bigger industry, and yeah, we're just preparing for it now.
Hello. I come from Greece. I'm not going to battle with you about the corruption. I want to ask you something. How do you deal? I mean, we all know that Greece is under economical crisis. We have fur farms in a county at Kastoria, which was a poor area, and because all the fur farms were closed some years ago, there were people claiming that they have no work and everything and all that. So now the new Ministry of Agriculture is a vet that comes from that county of Kastoria, that she is very much into the fur farm because she gave a big battle to reopen these farms, giving work to people. Okay, so we had 2 days ago a big demonstration over there, and there was a big fight from the society over there, even beating the people, the activists, you care about animals and you don't care about the children that we don't have to feed and all these kind of things. How would you address this, since the Ministry of Agriculture is on their side, showing that we have to do that because they have to earn money to feed their families. And since Greece and Bulgaria have an enormous amount of stray population, so all the animal welfare associations are more into rescuing stray animals companion, okay? So how do you find people to work on this? It's really, I mean, now that I'm here, most of my colleagues were telling me, what are we doing now? We have to save all these that we see in front of our eyes being tortured and abused and killed. And
Yeah.
you can understand what I'm saying. I think we have the same problems.
Yeah. Actually, we kind of solved this problem with, and this social center that I mentioned earlier in the presentation has a lot to deal with it, because there was a lot of intersectionality going in, and I learned a lot about industrial farming that has not only serious impacts on animals, but on people too. So from day one, when we started this informational campaign, we started documenting the conditions around the big farm. So we started talking to people and hearing about their struggles, and actually going public with these struggles, because for the 2 years that we've dealt with this, only one media ever paid attention to. So instead of just relying on media, we decided to be the media itself. And we did pay a lot of attention to this. We talk about these social struggles that people around the farms have, not just to the people that we collect signature from, but to the MPs too. And I think it's very important to do this, to present this as a holistic problem, because if you take one part of it, the rest of are going to stay. So it's a holistic thing, and this is actually something that one of the MPs had a problem with. He was like, "Oh, what's the real reason you're doing this? Is it the animals? Is it the people? What is it?" And yeah, it was difficult to explain that it's not just one thing. It's a complete series of things intersected.
And we have time for last question.
Thank you for the interesting talk. What are the feelings of society on foie gras production? Do you think it's going to be similar to the percentage of people opposing fur farms?
really hope so. I know most of people don't know what Far Cry is in Bulgaria, and they definitely don't know that Bulgaria is such a huge producer. But we're already quite experienced with informing the public about the problems of certain industries. So I think we can do great at informing them. And the sociological research that I just mentioned a few minutes ago, it makes me very optimistic about it. I think people are going to start caring about animals more than they have in the past. Yeah. The worst of the worst, yeah.
Okay, it was short, so last question goes there.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm curious, from what you're saying, it's the animal rights movement of Bulgaria is in a very early stage of development in many ways. I myself live in the Netherlands, originally from the UK, and both places are very, let's say, animal rights, animal protection has become very mainstreamed. So, not the most obvious people are necessarily the activists. How are you working to mainstream animal rights and the issues we're working on within Bulgarian society?
We do. Ah, I forgot the last slide. Can you please do me a favor and move to the last slide? So yeah, we do have a Facebook page, and on it we post again with the holistic approach of stuff, trying to connect animal rights issues to other issues. So we've been working closely with ecological groups. And I can't forget your question. All right. Yeah, like mainstreaming. Actually, yeah, we try to send out a very positive message, and I think, as we point out the problems, we try to make people involved in their solution. So try to give them actions to what they can do. And that's pretty much it. It's been resonating pretty well with people in Bulgaria. And I think part of the reason is because they've never been a part of something so altruistic and so positive at the same time. So yeah, instead of bringing attention to our organization, I really want to bring attention to Wild Animals Foundation. They're in the process of looking for a place where they will start the first shelter, wild animal shelter in Bulgaria. So if you're willing to donate, consider them. Or for four-legged friends, this is an animal rights shelter that cares predominantly with industry animals. And they've been operating in Bulgaria for more than 10 years, I think. And they're super struggling. So if you ever think about donating anything to Bulgaria, just consider these two causes.
Okay, thank you very much again.